Now, for a conscious diver, you can have them take fluids by mouth. And I emphasize conscious diver. They've got to be fully awake. Again, nothing with caffeine in it, and I know I probably don't have to say it, but I will anyways. No alcohol. You'd be surprised the folks that want to give their buddy a beer, but please don't do that. Get a good neurological assessment so you've got a baseline. So that way when EMS arrives, or certainly when they get to the hospital, they can see, has anything gotten worse or has it maybe gotten better? So that's important information. With an unconscious diver, if you look at the photograph over here, that's the recovery position. That's how you want to position them if they're unconscious. But that's only if they're still breathing on their own. If they're not, then you have to have them on their back so you can do appropriate rescue breathing and chest compressions if necessary. For a conscious diver, really it's more position of comfort than anything else, however they feel comfortable. Now, this is what we do to help you. We've got somebody on call on the other end of that phone 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And I'm one of the people that rotates through that. So you may be talking to me, but any of my colleagues are more than qualified to help you too. And we have access to our physicians during that same time period too. Definitely contact local EMS if at all possible. Get them to the local emergency room so they can get a thorough evaluation. Because again, not everything that looks like a dive injury is a dive injury. Once a medical professional determines that it may be decompression sickness, and we get a lot of calls from emergency room physicians who say, I've got this person here, what do you guys think? And we'll kind of help them go through the diagnostic process. Then if it's determined they need to be treated in a chamber, then we coordinate who's got the chamber, or if there's one on the site, even better. Now, the gold standard for treating decompression sickness is the U.S. Navy Treatment Table 6. This is what it looks like, because you're going to hear that term a lot, the Table 6. This is what it looks like. This helps maximize the amount of oxygen, because it's the oxygen that's doing the most of the work. Because people will complain, well, I was diving at 90 feet, but this one only takes me down to 60 feet. Yes, but you're breathing 100% oxygen. The blue lines indicate, now, technical divers know that if you have too high a percentage of oxygen, it can actually cause convulsions. So the reason they have the air brakes is that it helps avoid that convulsions. For that 15 or 5-minute segments, you're on regular air, which reduces the likelihood of having those oxygen convulsions. But that 100% oxygen is what's doing the work. What's nice about this table is that it can be extended. If somebody's down at that 60-foot level and they are starting to improve but not so much, they can actually keep them at 60 feet longer and then slowly bring them to the 30-foot level and extend that 30-foot level. So this has got a lot of flexibility based on the seriousness of the symptoms. And you can see, yeah, it's a long treatment, about 4 hours and 45 minutes, but this has the highest efficiency out of any of the treatments. So what are the things we can do to help prevent this ourselves? What can we do as divers? Slow our ascent rate. A safety stop, always recommended. That's at 3 minutes at 15 feet. It allows your body to get rid of some of the nitrogen that's absorbed before you finish your dive. Now remember, we all dive according to no decompression limits for recreational diving. So that safety stop is not a mandatory stop, but it sure is a good idea. Okay? Stay hydrated, especially between the dives. Stay well rested, and that's hard to do when you're on a vacation. You know, when you're out having fun, running around, sightseeing, that's hard to do, but try to keep that in mind. Maybe the next morning you're a little too tired, a little too hungover, maybe a better idea to skip the dive. When you're doing these trips where you're doing a lot of diving, take a day off completely from diving midweek. It just gives your body a chance to recover and off-gas some of that nitrogen that's accumulated over those days. Now, another thing to keep in mind, here's that altitude monster again. We'll talk about that. This is the current recommendations based on the flying after diving study that's been done at Duke University Hyperbaric Center. If you do a single no decompression dive, you wait 12 hours before going to altitude. Multiple days, multiple dives, wait 18 hours. If you do any decompression dives, whether that's planned or unplanned, because sometimes people overstay their limit and their computer will show mandatory decompression, longer than 18 hours is best. Okay? And another thing we all learned in our basic class is plan the dives, dive the plan. Make sure you think about the dive. Try to plan it out beforehand. Try not to have your dive last until your computer tells you it's time to come up. Also, avoid the limits. Even if you stay away from the end of the computer, even though the computer is not quite into the yellow zone yet, try to stay away from that a little bit. And it doesn't take much, a few minutes at that. Try to stay in good shape, just so you can physically participate in the sport. People get exhausted and drown because they've run into a problem, can't swim against the current. Certainly those of us that are over 40, an annual physical is always encouraged, especially the older we get, a good cardiac evaluation is in order. And become a self-reliant diver. Too many divers can be dependent on their buddy too much. You need to have good skills yourself. One, it can help prevent a lot of problems that may contribute to somebody getting into trouble, but it also gives you better confidence and makes you a safer diver. Again, best way to get experience is just dive as often as you can. I know that's not easy. I don't dive anywhere near as much as I would like to. But the more you dive, the more experience you gain, the more confidence. Buoyancy control. Buoyancy control helps avoid so many problems, even as simple as that middle ear squeeze or the sinus squeeze. The better control you have over your buoyancy, the more easily you can avoid injuries. Those rapid ascents that may contribute to arterial gas embolism can be avoided by having good buoyancy control. Keep your dive skills fresh. They do get rusty. Yes, it's like riding a bicycle. You never forget how, but boy, if you've watched anybody riding a bicycle for the first time in 10 years, they look a little wobbly, don't they? Same idea. Be aware of what your limits are. Don't be afraid to say, you know what, this is beyond my comfort. I don't want to make a dive like that. That's fine. Be aware of your skills too. And continuing education is very big. It gives you additional knowledge, understanding, makes you a better diver, makes you a better buddy too. Think of it that way. Make sure, we recommend, and being a former American Heart Association CPR instructor, I always tell people, anybody that spends a great deal of time in, on, or around the water should all be trained in CPR. And it's a skill that we all pray that you never have to use, but if you do, you'll know exactly what to do and how to do it. And it's a very easy skill to learn. Keep current in first aid too, very simple. Make sure that you know how to manage dive skills, and even consider getting continuing education to where you get up through your training agency to rescue level. If nothing else, it gives you a better way of maintaining your own safety. Always, continuing education is so valuable. Dan has courses that apply to all these things, and what separates our courses from some of the other ones is that they're designed by people who are divers themselves. And our courses are aimed for divers. Granted, a lot of the first aid courses are very good, but they're not aimed specifically for diving. And that's important. We have that 24-hour hotline. Don't forget that. Non-emergency medical information line. We're in the office Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. We have a toll-free number that you can reach us in the medical department. Any questions pertaining to dive medicine, fitness to dive, don't hesitate to call us. You can also reach us by email. That's becoming, of course, more popular. And that's fine. We'll respond to them. Every year you see us sending out the annual report on injuries and fatalities, which, by the way, if you go to our website, time was you used to have to purchase that or it was free to members. Dan has finally made that available for free to everyone because this information is important enough that we felt we should share it with everybody at no cost. So please go to our website, download a copy. I think you'll find the information useful, more in knowing what to stay away from and what to avoid. How we get the information is through our research department. These are the folks that put together that. Now, mind you, the medical department, as we get reports of dive injuries, We intake the information, then we